Good afternoon, guys. Video today we have a match that I had in the Ki-100-II. So for those that have seen my updated premium review for this aircraft, you'll realise how much I actually quite like this thing now. It's very forgiving to a new player with its armament, its handling characteristics. Sure, the flaps ripping off might be a pain in the arse, but other than that, this thing really does have potential and really is improved now. Obviously, the last time I really took a look at this aircraft, as I mentioned in the review, would have been when I first reviewed it, and it was god awful back then. The guns did nothing, the teams weren't the best, and the problems with the aircraft were far too severe. But nowadays, though, this thing is a beast, and Flappy got to see this thing in action. And let's just say, I said to him, I can't promise you a win, but I'm going to give it my all. And thankfully, the enemy team made quite a few mistakes. I did as well, but either way, it was still enough for me to get a sufficient carry, let's put it that way, out of this aircraft. So, obviously, I've already talked about this thing relatively recently, so I don't want to bore you with the details again of like what this thing can do. But the main difference between this and the Tech Tree variant is the Tech Tree variant has a supercharger, this has a turbocharger. So it's a little bit, it's not as good at power delivery at some points, but it is still something where you can go, yeah, I've got plenty of power, 1500 horsepower is enough. And given how light the airframe is, it's pretty alright, let's put it that way. Of course, the guns, I've already talked about in the review, pretty strong. The fact that this thing's quite agile at low speeds for a newer player is just so forgiving. Its climb, whilst it can't hold a candle, I would say, to the J2M and the Ki-44s around this BR, it doesn't need to. They don't have, like, if we had a premium Ki-44 at rank 3, same with a premium J2M, I would obviously suggest those over this. But until that day forms, I'm afraid you're going to have to stick with my opinion, but I know some people might disagree with that, but either way. At the end of the day, I try to do my reviews not just for experienced players, but also inexperienced players and newer players. That's just how I've always done them. If that annoys you, too bad. That's just how I've always done it. Anyway, I'm going to take you to the replay so you can have a look at how this thing did, and not only that, see a great carry, and I'll see you all in just a moment. And you join me a few minutes ahead into the match. We are starting off at the altitude where, of course, the match is taking place and everything. It does go lower, so don't worry about that. This thing's performance was perfectly adequate at this point. And, well, as you can see, we've got a P-51 pitching up for me and a 185 who is potentially going to be a threat. Turns out he does turn out to be a threat. At this point, my squad mate, Flappy, is already dead. He's been swarmed by a few ground pounders, so it is just down to me in terms of my squad. And in terms of my team, as you can tell, they're not doing too great. We're already losing a P-63, the Thunderbolt has no engine, and we've already lost quite a few players within the first 4 minutes of the match. Not looking good, is it? So, let's get to it. So of course, first target is the P-51 because he's there. And yeah, nice easy kill. Of course, 185, quite a good aircraft, but I wouldn't say it's better than the Ki-100. It does have performance characteristics over the Ki-100, but well, that's only because Gaijin won't give us the true nature of the Ki-100 because, yeah. That and also sourcing those documents is a pain in the ass from what I've heard. So there goes the Mustang, he's burning up now, but of course the I-185 I'm trying to force low. I don't necessarily have to kill him now because I can deal with him later, but I just want him to bugger off because as you can see over there to the left, there's a rather large swarm, and there goes the Mustang. So Flappy was just asking me like a little bit about the aircraft, and I was just telling him like what this aircraft was, like performance-wise in real life. Obviously in game it does have troubles compared to its real life counterpart, which if this thing got its real life performance, let's put it this way, it would probably be around 5053 because it was that good. For those that don't actually know, the data on this thing was so surreal. The army aircraft like the P-47s and stuff literally couldn't do anything against this thing. The only thing they could really do was run away, was their best option. In terms of the Navy, they didn't really have anything that could keep up, because the Corsairs got outdove by this thing, the Hellcats got their ass handed to them, and just overall, it was definitely a very powerful aircraft when given to even a decent pilot like Saburo Sakai, who actually flew this thing, from what I've read. Anyway, so at the minute, most of the enemy team is actually going back to their airfield because they are getting rearms and reloads and damage repairs. So at the minute, the only aircraft that's taking priority in terms of an enemy threat right now is this LA-5. Now, obviously, Flappy doesn't actually have a mic, so that's why I'm going to leave the chat up, so then, because obviously you can see what he was replying in terms of me obviously talking to him in the match. So, he was going on about Poodle Muncher, the I-185 pilot, but this is where the LA-5 actually forces me into one of my worst areas, high-speed dogfighting. But unfortunately, it's even better than the LA-5 at that, which, I mean, that's not much of an achievement, but that does get me my second kill. It's at this point where we need to take another look at that team, don't we? As you can see, it has been reduced to me, a H-8K who's out of bombs and ends up crashing later, and this Homare. Yeah, it's not looking good, is it? And the Homare already has plenty of trouble to worry about. He's got a P-63 diving on him, and an I-16 headed his way. He's going to kill the P-63, which certainly makes my job a lot easier. But unfortunately, the B-7 is going to go down eventually, so it's going to be down to me, pretty much. But of course, luckily for me, we're not fighting too strong of an aircraft, and not only that, I have a huge altitude advantage. I've got a couple kilometers above these guys, which is certainly something that I want. I do want an altitude advantage on the I-16s. I think there's 3 of them in this area alone, plus a Widow and a Helldiver. So the I-16 does see me coming. Obviously, I'm not going to follow him down. I want to bleed off a little bit of speed, see if I can get some shots in, and then go back up, because at the end of the day, I have a higher climb rate. He pitches up, trying to dodge. And other than having a few black puffs, because these guns still do that, because I think there's been a Ninja rail shatter nerf, so to speak, we're able to easily get guns on target and blow the I-16 to Kingdom Come, which reduces us, rather frankly by Flappy, to a 2v6, because the H-8K is about to crash. That's why he said that. And as you can see, against the competition we have there, there's nothing really that is a huge threat. Like, yeah, the P-61's turret is a big threat, but I'm not too worried about it, and he turns out to be quite irrelevant. The biggest threat out of this cluster here is probably the P-51, but of course, I still need to reduce the odds anyway, so I take a risky move on this head-on, fire a very brief burst, I get a crit, and I pull straight back up, because at the end of the day, I have the altitude advantage. Mr. Gordo is definitely struggling. Wolf stupidly pulls into the vertical, trying to follow me. And if there's one thing an iShack can't do, it's match this thing in the vertical. Kill number 4. It's around about this moment where I say to Flappy, I can't promise you a win, but I'm going to give it my all. And Flappy's flown with me for quite some time now, and he's definitely learned, like, a lot about leading and things like that, which is what I like. He's kind of learning from me, which is something I'm trying to do with most of my people here. But it's something where I can go, yeah, he's learning about planes that he may necessarily have heard bad things about. And it's also at this moment, as he's just mentioned it in the chat there, where I said, I really should start recording my matches more. So I get some damage in on the Helldiver, but of course, he's going to run to his airfield. I think he's out of ammo, which can't say I blame him, because it's either that or you die to a Ki-100. But yeah, he runs away, and off he goes. I break off, because now I need to get some altitude. Obviously the Mustang earlier on has started to climb, and he is going to be a threat eventually, but not for now. I want to try and get rid of that Black Widow. The Widow can take out every light pillbox and still have ammunition left for the tanks. And of course it can carry bombs because it turns out to be an A11, which I must admit I was surprised they gave it bombs, but hey ho, here's something. So, speaking of the Mustang, here comes the Mustang. He was asking me about my ammo load at this point. I had just under half my cannon and about half of my machine gun ammo. So I have more than enough to deal with what is coming up, let's put it that way. So of course, the Mustang player turns out to be quite passive. I think he's just nervous, and to be honest, I would be. The fact that someone with 5 kills is beneath you isn't necessarily a win-win scenario. Because yeah, he does have a Mustang, and it does turn out to be an Allison one. It's not a C. If it was a C, I would not be too afraid. But the fact that he's in an Allison Mustang, which it turned out to be, yeah, if I was in his shoes, I certainly would be crapping myself, that's for sure. Because there's not a huge amount an Allison Mustang can do in this scenario. P61 attempts to pitch up, but of course, yeah, I think it's an A11. I don't remember this P61. Oh no, it is a C. It is a C. He tries to lift up his turret. I aim for the wing because that's the best place to really aim for a Black Widow. And completely knacker his control, which is going to end up getting him killed later, so that'll be my 8th kill. Keyword there. And also, spoiler alert for the end of the match, that's how many kills I'm going to have. So the Mustang now is just watching me, which I don't mind. If anything, I want him to dive on me, because I can simply reverse him using the aircraft's maneuverability, and chances are he's going to overcommit because it's a Mustang player. They don't tend to be the smartest. And even against a skilled Mustang player, eventually I will have the advantage. But that's why I'm turning away from the ship-based AA, because then I don't get clipped by it, and that way I don't have to go back to base and potentially have a Mustang above me when I'm taking off. So this is where I decide to make my move. He's getting to within 0.8 of a mile, and this is where he overcommits. So I brake left to dodge out the way. Short and simple reversal, but of course he doesn't stick with the reversal, but he does make a very, very fatal error. He underestimates the climb of the Ki-100, which, if it was before it got its flight model changes, I'd understand that, but no, that's not what this thing's about. As you can see, he's bleeding a lot of speed. I'm even keeping up with him in a 20-degree climb. He's completely stalled out. He tries to put his nose down, but it's already far too late. I was asking him, like, what level is he, so I can have an idea of what I'm dealing with before that match. Well, that engagement, I should say. And, yeah, he's unfortunately not the best of pilots. But he did make a honest mistake, so I hope if he did see this video for whatever reason, you learn from that mistake, because that was very fatal, and yeah, that definitely wasn't the best of things. But yeah, this is definitely something. I even say it in the chat, and Pedro, the B7A2 pilot, is like premium prop, and I said, yep, it's premium alright, and trust me, I'd give this thing to a new player any day of the week. Helldiver now is coming back into the fight, but of course, he's in a Helldiver, he's not climbed, he's not really done anything. Short burst, sets him on fire. A couple of short bursts later, there goes him, and there goes the Widow. And there you go, that is an 8-kill run in the Ki-100-II. Certainly a carry which would have definitely been more difficult if I didn't have the I-16s, and would have been something like a bit more competitive, of course. Like, obviously the I-16s are still pretty solid aircraft, but they're not as strong as what they could have been. They could have been Yaks, they could have been something else. And that definitely would have been quite a dangerous situation if they were Yaks. But I still think I could have at least taken a few with me to the grave if I necessarily had to. But I hope that really puts across the point what I'm trying to say about the Ki-100. Whilst it isn't as good as something like a Ki-44 or a, well, J2M series of aircraft, the fact is, until the day we get a Rank 3 J2M Premium or a Rank 3 Ki-44 review, so to speak, to do, the simple fact of the matter is, this thing is probably your best option for a new player. But anyway, I'm going to leave you all to it for today. Really hope you enjoyed seeing the Ki-100-II in action, and I'll see you all on the next one.